Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the Souvenir de Florence, the fourth movement. It's by Tchaikovsky. It's a sextet. I'm sure you will all know. I hope you all know by now that it's written for 2 violins, 2 violas, and 2 cellos. This is a piece that is often played in a string orchestra form. This experience for you all is to be part of a collective experience and a collective voice, even though we are in isolation. So we want you to participate. We want you to be able to send in tapes. We don't need them to be perfect. We don't need you to hit every note right. We just want you to be absorbed in this large experience. So I want you to bear that in mind when you're playing, when you can perhaps only hear yourself, or when you listen back to a tape and you're obsessing over that wasn't right, this wasn't right. Please don't focus on that too much. I personally, when we look at the recordings, we want to see people going for it, having the experience of giving their all, enjoying the experience of a kind of pseudo playing together again. And we want you to have that uplifting feeling, and not one that is wrought with pressure and concern and obsession over small details. That's absolutely not what this experience is about at all. There's plenty of the rest of playing life and of classical music playing life that is about that. This is not. So in that vein, I thought it would be sensible in our first tutorial to address the largest issues. So if you haven't already, have a go and listen to our recording that we made, especially for all of you. It was a painstaking process, to say the least. I'm trying to work out who was going to be playing to a metronome, who was going to be leading, whether we use the benefit of the wonderful Yume and Charlie, who are in the recording, featured in the recording, because they're 2 violins that could play along together. All kinds of things that we had to experience that were not, let's say, plain sailing. But I'd like to think that we took the brunt of the difficulties for you, so that you guys can just sing along the top of our recording that we made. Right, so you'll hear in that recording that we are playing pretty fast, and that's mainly my fault because I just like at that tempo and thought that we should. So if you have never played this piece before, in order to fit into that pace and that type of sound, you will immediately feel that you have to be light and nimble. You can't ever rest or sit down in any single note. You have to have like a turbo behind you of nervous energy that's continually propelling you through. So you're never comfy, you're never relaxed, you're constantly like, like this. So the sound almost always, even in, for example, I'm hoping you have your score in front of you just now, your parts in front of you, score and parts. This is chamber music. You have to know the score. And if you don't, click pause, you can come back. Between B and C, that official second subject is the C major. Although it's singing and it's beautiful and it's got that lyricism to it, we are still not relenting. It still has this kind of lightness and like the sound is always going forward. So the first thing to do is address that when you start practicing it, so that you're not, if you never think of time or as tempo as something that is absolute, it's completely dependent on the amount that you infuse into every single note or every single beat. So if it's weighted and heavy and it's just full of like gunk, I don't know, full of something that's weighted, then a slower tempo is filled out. But if it's light and everything has that kind of momentum to it, then actually a fast tempo has a different sort of shape that goes this way, not so much this way. So tempo is always relative. If you feel like something is too fast for you, try to lighten everything, almost like you're kind of air playing or like you're fake playing on top of your instrument. Always try that and bear that in mind when you're playing something that feels too fast. So that is the general feel of generally how we're playing. So listen to that recording and understand the attitude and demeanor. So the second thing that I would always advise everyone to do when learning a piece for the first time, which some of you will be, but for those of you who are coming back to it, it's just as relevant because it's something we have to review and continue to remember to do and address when looking at music, is the lay of the land, the structure, your roadmap. It's like, if you know roughly that you've got to get from England to Scotland, you know you're going north. And then you're going to start like finding out exactly which roads to take and stuff, but you have to know generally which direction you're going. So I think of the same with music, with pieces of music. I try to look and do it visually first. You can look at a piece of music and see where things look like they're similar and like they're going in a certain direction, and then when they change, they physically visually look different. So I'm just going to take you through my roadmap for this piece. The other thing to say about structure and about like an analysis of a score, don't make the mistake that so many of us make, and I absolutely did make, which is to think that there's a right and wrong. You can be creative with how you see and where you see differences, where you see similarities. Of course, there are absolutenesses, I don't know what that word is, for like notes that are the same, key signatures that are the same or that are different. There are definitive things regarding that, but in terms of how the story looks, think of it like when a story is passed on through lots and lots of different people, it's going to be told ever so slightly differently, and it's going to be, the reason it's told differently is because it's interpreted differently and heard differently. It's like when all the studies that are done about people's memory of things that they've experienced of their life, the vast majority of our memory, if somebody had been recording every moment of our life, we'll find out is actually inaccurate. We don't remember things exactly. So our imagination is incredibly powerful. So something that seems as technical and as right or wrong as the structure of a piece, just use your imagination with that. You can create that story for yourself to make it come to life and more colorful. So I'm taking you through mine, the things that seem kind of obvious to me. So if we look from the beginning until letter B, this entire thing has basically a consistent motion. Nothing stops for like bam, bam, ba. There's always or there's this continuous thing, and you'll see how we're playing it. Now, one of us, when recording it to begin with, we were playing to a metronome, so rhythmically is a little bit different to how we would do it if we were physically just all together. Nevertheless, what that's actually done is kind of like take the pressure off the thing that I would constantly obsessively talk about when we would get together as a string orchestra to rehearse this, which is to never sit back and never relent. Anyway, we're not talking about that, we're talking about structure. So beginning to B, that is basically similar material that has a similar intention. From B until the double bar, which is the second subject, so from B until that double bar C major, we're getting a little hint of what's to come with the fugue. So you hear contrapuntal voices, you hear this crotchet semiquavers, bam, bam, bada bada bam, 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 bada bada bam. So there's a certain feeling to that, and it introduces the idea of the sections and voices of the group fighting against each other, but in an organized fashion. So then, of course, we have the C major second subject, which is the double bar after B before C. You will all see exactly where that is. This builds and builds and builds, but it's basically the same material. Now you have this thing that happens twice, which is after D. It's like the world stops. Time stops, the world stops. It doesn't actually. We're counting harder than ever and more carefully than ever, but you have this kind of lull, which is then to prepare you for the second subject theme and the first subject theme portrayed in unbelievable grandeur. So I'm talking about, say, about 15 bars after D, bam, ba-dum, 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 ba-ba-bum, ba-dum, 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 all of that. And then if you fast forward, you have this little adjoining section, which is like kind of little pixies, like chasing each other. And then this huge big build until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bars after F, which is that first theme that we hear at the very beginning, but 9 bars after F, again, it's grandeur. So you have this kind of, if we just recap that, so after D, it's just suddenly the music is interrupted. It's been pushing and then it's interrupted. We have this kind of no man's land moment, and then it builds to the two themes that we've heard so far, but they're in their ultimate glory and kind of grandeur, glory, I don't know what the right word is. Okay, so after that, so when we get to G, of course we return to the beginning, but listen out for that second cello part. It's like, it's my favorite thing ever. I just absolutely love it. So then that is preparing us. It's got an engine type feeling, an anticipation type feeling, that happens in films when you know something bad is going to happen. You're like, okay, we are getting prepared for something. It is the material from the beginning, but it's somehow not. Something is different. And lo and behold, we are then gifted the fugue after H. So tempo giusto, you should all know that is the fugue. That was difficult to record, we're not gonna lie. That was not easy to record that. Okay, so that is self-explanatory. You absolutely need to look at and listen to our score. You can listen to our recording, but there are a number of strange moments in it because of the nature of trying to put something together that is that complicated, with us all listening to different parts and to metronomes and the way it was pieced together. I would strongly recommend that you also listen to other recordings for the fugue in particular. Okay, so now after the fugue we return to the second subject again, but now we're in D major. It's a similar type thing, similar type of feeling. I wouldn't say there's anything particularly different other than the different feeling of the two keys. Constantly listen for bum ba da bum ba da bum ba da. That's such an important part. So we can just be indulging, singing away in our melody. We can think we can, but no, you have to be so aware of everything that's happening around you. Back to what I said at the beginning, with something that is fast paced, keep it light, keep it nimble. You do not want to be heavy or sticky with the sound, because you're not going to hear what's happening around you and you're going to come apart, and it's just not good chamber music playing. Okay, so then we have what is kind of developmental material leading to a coda. And also, and it's back to that kind of chasing, falling and rising, chasing. So you see how untechnical my analysis of this movement is. But believe me, I know the structure and shape of this movement. I know it in the ways that count. Like I can feel it, I can see it, I could draw it. You know, I know it in my stomach and in my heart. So. When we get to after from P until R, this is basically a transitional material that is propelling us again for that stop, for that moment of just time stopping, everything stopping, and the shock of that, the whole thing from Q to R is like a chase. We're just chasing each other. And then actually from the crescendo after R, so you've got a triple forte, it's like 4, 8, 12, like 16 bars. We have almost like it's a recognizable theme, but we've not heard the theme in this form before. And that has a jubilance to it that is almost like a release and a relief that we've not felt in the same way. Even when you have a kind of grand major theme before, which is after D, it's not the same as this. This is inverted, and it's just jubilant and let's go in a different way. Then of course we are leading to the più vivace, which is I guess is the coda, and its intention is to be as exciting as possible. So that's like the general shape. You have two dominant themes, you have a fugue, you have a coda, you have transitional material that is a chase, anxiety, and the kind of fighting among sections in the orchestra. Okay, so next thing I would suggest everybody does is just to circle the hard parts and work on them. So I've done that for you. You might disagree. These parts might be really easy for you, but not for me. So okay, so the first thing to address is every single time. So if we're just saying back to what I was saying at the beginning about the compactness. So you're in that state of just like the sound. I mean, apart from the fact that it's actually piano, but it's more than that. It's not about playing soft. It's about playing with a listening sound. You're not solid. Your sound has some air in it so that you're hearing everything around you. And you know, if you enter into a room and you're just trying to work out what is going on around here, your sound should be like that all the time. But the first difficult thing for me, for a lot of people, is to play. Okay, so I would actually practice it in isolation and exaggerating like that. So it's almost like the whole time you're quite passive. Sorry, my bowing. So I'm playing it out of time, and I'm playing it in a way that just gets my body used to that. And do that first, and don't worry about being in time. Then do the opposite. Big fan of always doing the opposites. So now I would just say one thing about the right hand. I am trying to not control this too much. I'm just trying to let it go. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Don't get into that process of like, it's not working. Just try to keep this. It'll come, it'll get there. Okay, so the second one is, if you can see, cheat. Put your first finger on the D string. So you have, and it means that you can kind of jump over that D string without too much worry. It's not perfect at all. Just say the 4 bars before that. I play, so I'm ricochet down bow. And then I go down, down, up, down, up, down, sorry. Okay, I just realised I'm going to want to talk through every single bar, but that's okay. I'll just keep going for now. These extremely, just articulate. That's not very articulate. You see what I mean? They're like compact. Okay, the next really difficult thing is before B, 4 bars, 8 bars, about 12 bars. You've been doing this for ages. Then so that jump can be quite difficult. What I would say is the 3 bars before you get there, prepare your body that you're not just leaping. And if it's not comfortable for you, cheat. Just cheat. I don't cheat, but I'm telling you to cheat. Prepare. That last bar, prepare. Does that make sense? So you basically are foregoing the top D of the octaves before the jump. Just a suggestion. Okay, so after B, this whole section which prepares for the fugue, be like a soldier. So you want flat hair. I'm the worst person ever playing with flat hair. It's always going all over the place. I can't help it. Play with a flat hair and very like you've got like structure to your body, and like your stomach is suddenly tense, and like it's all just very controlled and really like excited, tight sound. So you've got that kind of tension to it. then I want to talk through everything. So this theme, you don't need to play too loud. You're going to want to pour your heart out and, you know, go for it. That's fine. But keep this moving. Keep your right hand moving. Keep the fluency and fluidity of the right hand. Okay, I am going to jump to the next really actually difficult thing. And I'm talking about things that you can't just work out with a thought or intelligence or listening. You have to actually really practice them, which of course is after D. If you look to... If you take that place, if you just get that up in front of you after D, my way of getting around that in a way that's comfortable, but I also feel like it's satisfying. If you think of the way it's shaped, so often we create a lot of problems by not thinking in the largest, from the largest view. It's just really important when things are difficult to simplify them in your mind as much as possible and declutter your mind as much as possible. So for this, what you want to have in your whole physicality is certain meeting points and certain things that you're going towards. And with such a lot going on and a lot of emphasis here, it can be quite difficult. So we've got the build up. You've got all those different things. I would advise that you think of everything quite smooth until you get to that top G. And then from here, you think of that in kind of one motion. Make sure when you come back to the second finger, you're prepared. Because at least then you don't have to worry about the right hand. There's a lot going on sorry, you don't have to worry about the left hand. There's a lot going on with the right hand there, but your left hand just stays in one position. So I would definitely circle and just try to practice that as much as possible with the purest of sound, not too much vibrato, and that is just singing. Make sure to enjoy the retake, which, you know, I see us playing that in this context when we're recording in isolation. I don't feel like we did that enough or nearly as much as we would do if we were performing it, where it's so fun. Usually that plays. Then that retake, that's usually such a satisfying moment. So if you guys want to actually make it better than what we did and add to it to really give a lot of emphasis into that retake, we would be very happy with that. Now with these, you want to pretty much practice them without vibrato. But just that area generally, that is a circled, difficult area. Somehow it feels like a lot happening. I can't emphasize enough. Come up with the shape. Sing it. Ba 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 bum ba dum ba rum ba rum ba ba bum ba dum da rum ba rum ba ba bum 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 bum. So it kind of declutters in your mind. Okay. The fugue. I would literally practice this. Put a metronome on and practice it like. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Okay. The last thing you want when there's a lot of moving parts is to be unruly. So this is your place for being like the ultimate soldier, just so disciplined and so compact, and you stay in your space. And if you stay in yours, everybody else stays in theirs. You kind of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. So very little bow, practically no vibrato. There, just tiny. Please look at the score for this place. The more you actually understand what other people are doing, the less chance you have of coming apart, which, believe me, can happen. You're lucky you have our bass recording to you know, as a bit of a fail-safe. Right, okay, so I would spend quite a long time on that last page after P. This is really tricky when you all get together for intonation. So this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 9th of P. So that top F. Again, kind of like what I was saying before, if you make sense of the intonation and the sound, you don't have to do it in a way that is particularly technical. It just has to make sense to you so that you can hear when things resolve. I'll just play it again so you guys can actually play along with me if you want. Those bars are really horrible when you all get together. Q, as compact as possible, tiny amount of bow. Just showing you my fingering there. So from the 3rd one, and then I shift 1, 1. And then 2, 2. And then I do the same thing here. Sorry. Then you can replay that if you want to steal my fingering. Okay, so I think one of the probably trickiest places, and also a place that for some reason almost all string orchestra versions I hear of this, it's really hard to get it in tune and to get it kind of ringing a certain way. So of course that is from before S, 4 bars. How can I be helpful with this? I think one of the most important things is to work out what part of the bow you're in. So for where are you by here? And also just for you to see my fingering as well. So I do 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, then 2, 3, then when I get to the C sharp, 1, 2. When you get to the end of that thing, be very aware that there's a quaver that comes before your semiquaver. But this place, I would practice very light. It goes fast and it feels fast, so practice it once you've basically worked out what you're doing, kind of practice it almost like you're not playing properly. I'm playing very lightly and trying to feel the shape of it. From S, those 4 bars, just you hear I'm focusing completely on the longer note. and those semiquavers, those semitones underneath, they just slot in. So you're not thinking again of every single note. You are halving the number of things to think about. You're thinking you're trying to hear only the longer notes, and then all the semitones, they just kind of, you just fit them in underneath. They just lead up to that note. Here at T, okay, I'm going to show you my fingering, but I'm also going to just say keep that as tight as possible. You don't want to be using a whole load of bow there because it goes fast, and we want the sound to be like percussive. So keep it. Okay, this is the finger I do. I'm gonna be forgetting it now. Prepare. 1. So I use that to get to the F on this string, which is then an octave to here. That's just how my hands work. It might totally not work for you. You might be better just jumping from first position up to, but that's just what I do. Then stay there. I would recommend this. This is a really good fingering. Do it again. So from the beginning of third after T, and I also use that octave. Because it's kind of an awkward interval to hear. Now the hardest thing with this is to not sound like a little chirping, scratchy, annoying thing. It's really difficult to sound nice there. So I would say don't use too much bow, but don't try to play too loud. Keep the sound actually quite free. Especially when you practice it, because by the time you get to that point in a performance of it, you're going to want to go for it because the excitement takes over and you want to just give everything, and then the sound just starts getting more and more and more tight. So yeah, I was thinking about how Yume plays that. She actually she kind of is gripping her bow in a certain way, and she's kind of going a little bit more into the sound. And the other thing is, I would say, just for anybody who's kind of struggling with that place, just make sure that this position here is really well supported. It will make your sound a lot easier. So the fingering I use is 3, then swap to 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2. Then very small amount of O. Okay, this is my fingering here as well. 2, 2, 2, 3. Do that once more time. One more time. Sorry. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't play. I'm playing in tune, so I just play all 3s. And prepare. I actually often don't play that octave. I just play an open string. Now, these last bars, I cannot emphasize enough how much how important it is to get the purest possible intonation. And I've seen Elena and Andrea both talk about this a lot in their tutorials, just how important sound is for intonation. It's like half the battle. So it's really strong, secure left hand, and then as much ringing as possible in the right hand. So maybe just you want to just play it with me, maybe? Prepare. Prepare. And also not too short. Try to get something of a warmth to the sound there. Now I just went through that whole last place because the whole last like from S to the end is difficult. Okay, so that was my circling the hard places, which was a lot of hard places that I was circling. Okay, so I'm gonna say two last things before I finish. So one, the second last thing is the general demeanor. So always address this. Your general demeanor being your posture, your stance, the basic feeling of what we're playing. And what your attitude should be when we're playing. So everything that I was saying at the beginning about that kind of turbo engine, nervous energy, keep that intensity the whole time, and never relax the sound, never get kind of floppy with the sound. It doesn't mean be tense and tight, it just means have that like sparkle and lightness to it. And then I'm just going to leave you with the actual purpose of this experience, this particular experience, not just playing the piece, but sending in a tape to be part of a big orchestra. The purpose is the collective, that feeling of excitement, of being a part of something. All we want to see is you going for it, trying your absolute hardest, having a good time, taking a risk, just really enjoying yourself. And feeling comfortable feeling comfortable and comforted by the collective, by the fact that you're with all of us and we're having an experience all together. So I really hope that was helpful, and I will chat to you guys soon. Thank you so much.